the you said there's like five main bacteria that seem to agitate, I guess, AS in a sense that they share the peptide that our T cells are after.
Yeah.
Are they all pretty starch reliant starch reliant bacterias, or is it mostly just Klebsiella that's like the starch fiend?
Well, let me show you. This is like hot off the press. I'm still working on it, so give me a second here. Temperature, see if you can see this here. I'm still building this out because it's a bunch of research that I've had to do on different
Yeah, I've
medical
also
trials.
I love the school platform that you've created. I've watched the whole thing.
Good.
I've
I'm
watched and
glad to
read
hear.
all 8 chapters.
This is probably the chapter that I'm dropping in the next day or two, but this is the five bacteria that mimic that T cell that has that extra little search, that key that we keep talking about that is searching for. These are the five that have that. So the first one's Klebsiella. It loves high simple sugars, refined carbs. If you have a low fiber diet, it gives it the ability to kind of explode in your gut, and it reduces the ability for other things to colonize your gut bacteria if it's the like primary bacteria. So the best way to get rid of this guy, since it's primarily in your lower intestine, and it loves to use insoluble starches because it breaks down into all these different little chunks of sugar. Just stop eating starch. No potatoes, no beans, no rice, no bananas. Get
Yep.
starch out of your diet completely, and then Klebsiella will start dying off. So that was the first one. The second one's E. coli. This one is basically wash your vegetables. A lot of people pick this up from bagged salads, bagged certain foods and produce that might have like some pig manure or something on it. Still, like, make sure you wash all your vegetables and be really, really diligent on clean cooking methods. So if you have raw chicken, raw stuff in your raw fish in your fridge, put a different shelf in its own little tray. So if it drips or something, it can't get on anything else. And keep that very segmented. Even when you're cooking, make sure you have this is a cutting board for your meats, and your knife and everything else goes into a separate spot when you're like preparing food. Then your salads
Hmm.
and all the other stuff that you would eat raw. Be very careful about E. coli. That one also causes it. This one is also salmonella. Same thing, meat and chicken and stuff cross-contaminating food can cause it.
Yep.
Um, Shingilla, I'm still kind of researching a little bit. It's a new one to me because I don't know it all that much, but it seems to be a lot of contaminated food and water. So if you're going overseas and you're not quite sure about the water, this is like Montezuma's revenge. China has a bunch of like problems with their water system not being the cleanest. This is probably where you're going to get
Right.
this kind of stuff. Um, and the
Interesting.
less savory thing, also certain like acts in the bedroom. Be careful where you put your mouth. So
Right.
yeah, I won't go much in more into detail, but yeah, just be careful of like where you're picking that up. And then Yersinia, this one was infection from usually undercooked food like pork, especially. So make sure that you're cooking your pork to the temperature that's not like raw. You also need to be kind of careful of any meat that's super rare, like steak. I always cook everything to at least a medium level now. I don't have anything that's bloody, and that tends to keep this guy out of my system. And the last one isn't really a bacteria, but it does have the peptide. So this one, of course, use protection. Don't get this thing.
Chlamydia.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not a part. It's not. It doesn't live in your gut. It's actually this little like infection that goes into a cell, and it uses other cells as a host. But you have to use antibacterials to get rid of it, and then that destroys your gut biome. So those are kind of the main
Interesting.
five that share that YEIH peptide that can have an effect on your T cells starting to flare up and starting to attack your body. I was like, oh, interesting. So this came from a research paper because they actually reverse engineered what is a T cell looking for. So they took all of these people that had flare ups, took the sinusoidal fluid. Sorry, I'm not I'm not a medical guy, but they basically extracted from the joints that were inflamed in the eyes all the fluid, and then they ran it through a process to see what is the bacteria that share this peptide, and those are the top 5 that they found. It's like, oh, okay. Well, now we have a game
Interesting.
plan. Most people don't realize that they have Klebsiella because it's super easy to pick it up, and there's not really anything against it. Like, it lives in your lower intestine. For the most part, it's harmless for the wide variety of populations, just people that have HLA-B27. And some people that are even negative, they're sensitive to it, and their T cells confuse it with actual health
Interesting.
parts of your body. I was like, oh,
And
interesting. So
do you think that are GI tests pretty good at picking up the levels that you have of each of these, or
there's
like I
3, you're like almost going in order. At least it's validating that I'm doing this the right way. There's 3 that have been validated, at least for Klebsiella, to be able to pick up what you have. PCR, this is just a yes, no, you have it, but it doesn't tell you in like how bad or in what quantity. If you have a qPCR, this is the one where I would at least go to if you suspect Klebsiella. It will actually count proportions, like of your gut biome, what percentage is Klebsiella? And that's the one that I took that was like, oh, most of my gut bacteria is Klebsiella. I got to completely change my diet.
interesting.
Because at the time, I was trying to gain weight. So I was eating chicken and red rice, and I was eating potatoes at every meal. I was having like, I think
Right.
70% of my diet was carbs because I was trying to bulk up. And then when
Yeah.
I learned this,
That's
I'm like, oh, gotta completely change my mindset. It doesn't matter if I'm thin or skinny or I don't have much muscle. I'd rather be healthy. The last one is
interesting.
probably overkill, but you can get the ddPCR, which is a digital droplet, and it'll actually count up the number of instances of the DNA that it found. And so it's very precise, also super expensive, and I think probably not necessary for most people. So if you get
Gotcha. A qPCR will probably give you enough of a scope to know if that's the enemy you're dealing with.
basically. I was like, okay, so now every once in a while, if I start feeling off, I'll go into a GP. I'm like, time for a qPCR, and they basically say, go poop, take a little like Q-tip, stick it in there, put it in the tube, and like send it off to the lab.
Yep.
So it's easy to do. It's kind of gross, but it answers your question, like what in my gut bacteria is my T cells reacting to, and then I can start saying, oh, well, it's salmonella or it's E. coli. Most of the time for me, it's I've had a Klebsiella flare up. So
Interesting. I actually had did I believe it was a qPCR test. It was with a company called Tiny Health in the US. It was a company my functional doctor recommended me use. And I found it really interesting that on my particular sample, I had no detectable levels of Klebsiella.
interesting.
But
Good.
you do have me scratching my head now because this was after I had been doing a primarily carnivore diet for about 6 months, 7 months. Very, very low carb. The only thing I had really added in was a bit of sauerkraut and a bit of blueberries here and there. Otherwise, it was just meat and eggs every day, all day. Um, and my biome was actually overall, my microbiome was very low in diversity for this
Mm,
from this test.
yep.
Um, and
And
I didn't really have a whole lot of negative invaders that they were clocking in, but I had undetectable levels of I'm gonna probably butcher the pronunciation on this, but was it the Bifidobacterium, like one of the more common, generally accepted as good bacteriums. And then there was one that started with an A. It was like Acker or something. That
Hypermansia is, I think it's
yes, and
one.
I had no detectable levels of that as well. So my functional doctor looked at me and he's like, "Well, your guts, you definitely are a fixer upper here. There's not really a lot of good. The only benefit you have right now is there's not an overwhelming population of bad. You
Yeah.
just kind of have like a whole lot of variables, a small percentage of, well, an elevated percentage of histamine producing bacteria, which I found interesting as I actually became more histamine sensitive this year than I had been in the past.
Yeah.
And I think that the carnivore diet probably didn't help me with that. Plus,
I mean, there's people that swear by it, and I tried it. I think short term it can provide great relief because when you just need to get the bacteria down and maybe you don't understand the dietary requirements, like I don't know what starch is, I don't know if this food has starch in it. It provides a very easy way to eliminate the bacteria that you don't want.
right,
The long term though, I think that's what happens, like what you're describing is you lose all the beneficial stuff. Like now you're down to only the things that want to eat meat. If you do have something invade or you have a slip up and you go to a birthday party and you have a piece of cake, it's just opportunistic. Like there's nothing there. So weeds will grow everywhere because you don't have a whole lot of stuff taking up, the ground that you've like laid there. So
right.
I would say
Yeah,
short term, if you want to get out of a flare, go for it. Your bacteria probably aren't gonna like completely die off on a short stint. But if you do it for like weeks and months at a time, then you're starting to cause this problem where, all right, well, now you're making yourself more susceptible because you don't have competition. You don't have things crowding out
yeah.
bacteria that are coming in.